UFC Fight Night, we have Erin Blanchfield taking on Manon Fiorot. UFC is going back to Atlantic City for this card. If you're not familiar with Atlantic City, basically a mini Vegas, just a little bit more sketchy in certain areas. But we have 14 fights in this card. I'm going to give you guys my quick predictions, quick breakdowns for each fight. So this is basically my last 30 events or so, UFC events, betting on the UFC. And I've bet on every single card over this time span, and I've been profitable 23 of the last 27 events, and I've profited about 140 units during this time span. And if you're not familiar with betmma.tips, basically it's a website where specifically MMA handicappers can be legit. I put in all of my picks, all my bets to this website before the event starts, and the website grades it. And this is my results over the past 30 events or so. Okay, enough of that. Let's get into the fight breakdowns. First fight, we have Angel Pacheco taking on Loughran. Loughran is a small, compact, really strong Irish dude. I just think the one thing to note here is Pacheco is dropping down to bantamweight for the first time. He's made the cut before, but I think only during his amateur career, so that's something to question. I just think that Loughran's going to be better pretty much everywhere. You know, Pacheco's never been finished, super tough, but I just think Loughran's going to get him out of there sometimes. He doesn't have the best power, but what he does really well is he takes you down and he holds you down, puts you in a bad spot, and then ground and pounds you out. So I think he's going to ground and pound finish, get a ground and pound finish here, or submit Pacheco at some point. Next up, Petroski taking on Malkoun. Malkoun making the trip from Australia. Petrovsky, I think a lot of his success is going to be front-loaded. He's a good grappler, but he fades. He's a good hammer, but he's a bad nail. So I think even if he has success early, I think that Malkoun's going to take over late and eventually finish him. Next fight, Melissa Gatto taking on Dudakova, Brazil versus Russia. Another thing to note here is Dudakova is coming up in weight. She missed weight her last time out, so now she's fighting at 125, and she's fighting a very big 125 flyweight in Gatto. I just think it's going to be a little too much too soon for Dudakova. She struggled with the physicality of her last opponent, Jinyu Frey, who fought at 105 at one point. So I think she's going to struggle here, and I think that Gatto either wins minutes or gets a submission. Iblo Aslan taking on Anton Turkalj. Turkalj, the pleasure man. I mean, you got to love this guy. Even though he's 0-3 in the UFC, he's on a bit of a skid. I think he gets back on track here. He's fought a really good past three opponents, and this is actually a rematch. These guys fought a few years ago where Aslan had success early, and then he gassed out and Turkalj finished him. I think we're going to get the same kind of result here, unless Aslan, without USADA, is all of a sudden taking all these PEDs or EPO, and his gas tank's going to be great. I think that Turkalj takes over late and finishes him. Connor Matthews taking on Dennis Bazooka. Not a fan of this fight. I mean, I think it's going to be entertaining, but I honestly don't think it's the highest quality fight in the UFC. Both these guys, I feel like, are more so regional fighters. They both are well-rounded overall, but they don't really excel anywhere. Matthews, super aggressive early on, but very hittable. He hasn't been finished, I don't believe, but he's been rocked multiple times, especially in the Contender Series. Bazooka, I think his pace is a little more sustainable, and I can see him winning like rounds 2 and round 3 to get a decision. Okay, we have Julio Arce taking on Herbert Burns next. Herbert Burns, the lesser of the two Burns, way less tough, way less durable than Gilbert Burns. But here we are. He's back in the UFC. He had a bit of a break, maybe 1 or 2 years. If you didn't watch his last fight, it was embarrassing. He basically had his way, had a submission locked in on Bill Algeo, who's also fighting on this card. And then basically Herbert Burns just gassed out and then just basically looked for a way out. But anyway, in this fight, something to note is that Arce is fighting at 145. He typically fights at 135. He has fought at featherweight in the past, but he's making the jump back up. And I just think he's the better fighter all around here. I think that actually Burns is live to get a submission early on, but after that, I don't think it's going to happen because Arce does have good takedown defense, and I think that Arce finishes him round 2 or round 3. Next, we have Verna Jandiroba taking on Lupita Godinez. Lupi is my girl, but I don't think you could trust her here at chalk, typically because she doesn't have the best fight IQ. When she should attempt takedown, she doesn't, and then vice versa. But I just think that she has the better cardio here, and she's the better striker, so I'm going to pick her. Verna, she tends to do really good against strikers. She just beat Marina Rodriguez, and I think before that it was Angela Hill, 2 really good strikers, but she was able to get her grappling going and sustain that. If she can't get her grappling going and continue to have success with the wrestling, she tends to fade. Doesn't have the best striking, so I'm going to pick Loopy. Next fight, we have Nate the Train Landwehr taking on Jamal Emmers. You just can't get a boring Nate the Train fight. I'm really looking forward to this fight. Unfortunately, I'm going to pick Emmers. I just think that he's a little bit better everywhere. He's more athletic. He's longer. I think he has a better wrestling. His cardio is good. That's where typically Nate does well, when he puts on his pace and pressure, and then guys slow down and he kind of takes over and finishes them late. I don't think that's going to happen here. I think Emmers has good enough lateral movement. He has good distance management, and I think that he wins this one by decision. Next fight, we have Chidi Njokuani taking on Reese McKee. I got to be honest, I'm a little surprised by all the Reese McKee love on the betting line. Reese McKee, he's tough and he has good cardio, but that's really about it. He's a punching bag, and Chidi is so much better when it comes to striking. His Muay Thai is just fucking unreal. I just think he's going to be able to pick apart Reese McKee. I can see why people are rationalizing a bet on McKee because, number one, Chidi's dropping down to 170, which is insane. I don't know how he's going to make the weight. We'll find out tomorrow, Friday. But I just think that Chidi's just going to outclass Reese McKee. If he can make weight and he looks okay, even if Chidi doesn't get him out of there early, which I think he can because McKee is very hittable, I just feel like he's going to be able to at least win the first 2 rounds. The third round might get a little hairy, but I still think he beats McKee. Bill Algeo taking on Kyle Nelson. I think Bill Algeo is a really good fighter. He's big for the division, super durable, long, manages distance well, throws a lot of volume. The way you beat Bill is by being able to chain wrestle and hold him down, and that's just not Kyle Nelson's game. So I just think that Algeo is going to either win by decision or get Nelson out of there late. Next, we have Ruzaboyev taking on Cedricus Dumas. If you're not on Twitter, I'll let you know that this is like the Twitter division fight of the week. Everyone has strong opinions on either side, and it's dividing MMA Twitter right now. But personally, I'm going to take Ruzaboyev. If you didn't know, Dumas, I don't think his game is that good. He's athletic, but I just feel like he's not all the way in. And also, he's been dealing outside of the UFC. He got charged with felony battery. He's went to court this month, so he's got all that going on. Not making a pick based on that, but I just think Ruzaboyev, he's huge. He's a better jiu-jitsu. He's very dangerous, and he's going to get Dumas out of there early. We have the All-American Chris Weidman taking on Bruno Silva. I'm taking Weidman here. I just think that he has more ways to win. He's the way better grappler. He's the bigger guy. And we've seen Bruno Silva, he's been in a lot of wars, and he tends to fade as the fight goes on. I just think that if Weidman can work his grappling, get on top, he can either find a submission or he can grind it out and win a decision. Obviously, the risk is that he gets caught at some point and gets knocked out, but I don't think that happens. Chris Weidman here. Co-main event, we have Vicente Luque taking on Joaquin Buckley. I'm going to pick Buckley here. Vicente Luque is a legend. He's been in a ton of wars. I just don't think he's the same fighter. And I think the athleticism, movement, speed of Buckley, who finally found his weight class, he was undersized at 185. He looked really good at 170. And I just think he's going to be able to move around the octagon, piece Luque up, and eventually win a decision. Main event time. Erin Blanchfield, cold-blooded, taking on Manon Beast Fierro. The pick here is going to be Blanchfield for a number of reasons. One, she's 10 years younger. Two, she's reliant. She has good cardio, and she's reliant to push a heavy grappling pace, even if it doesn't work out. We saw that in her last fight against Tyler Santos. I don't know if she even took her down one time, but she was able to attempt a number of takedowns and eventually get to Santos. Grappling cardio and kickboxing cardio are two different things. I think that eventually she's going to be able to get to Fierro, even though Fierro has good initial takedown defense and an urgency to get back to her feet. If she does get taken down, she hasn't really fought the caliber of fighter in terms of the grappling as Erin Blanchfield. And I just think that especially later on, if Blanchfield can get her down and hold her down, it's going to be in her world. And I think that she's actually live for the submission. So pick is Blanchfield. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. I just want to show you guys this. This is my last 10 moneyline bets. I've only lost one time on Corey McKenna, but I've been 9 out of 10. And I do have a big moneyline bet, big underdog set for Atlantic City, as well as other bets. If you're interested in accessing my bets, it's on Dub Club. Click the link in the bio. You get access to all my bets, private Discord, and I post long shot parlays and live betting angles. Thanks, guys.